It was the kind of cold that didn't just sting your skin, it cut straight to the bone. The Gallatin River had frozen over weeks ago, its surface a pale sheet under the winter sun. Beneath, the current still moved, black, relentless, and hungry. Caleb Warren knew the river well. He'd trapped these valleys since he was 16, learned the ways ice could lie to you, how it looked thick but broke if you set your weight wrong. That morning, he'd come to check his beaver sets along the South Bend, a place where the ice grew treacherous after the thaw and freeze of early spring. The wind slid low along the banks, carrying a sound he almost mistook for the call of a crow. But crows didn't sound like that, sharp, ragged, torn with something close to panic. Caleb froze mid-step, breath hanging in the air, his eyes scanning the white stretch. There, out past the bank, movement. At first he thought it was just the wind rattling a branch under the ice. Then the sound came again. A cry, thin, fading. He stepped closer and saw her. A young woman, maybe 20, clinging to the edge of a hole in the ice. The river had claimed her from the waist down, her dress dark and stiff with freezing water. She was trying to pull herself up, but her arms trembled so hard it was a wonder they held her at all. Caleb's gut tightened. No one ended up in that river by accident this time of year. "Hold still," he shouted over the wind, his boots already crunching forward. The ice groaned under him, a low warning. He dropped to his belly, spreading his weight, and crawled the last yards. Her lips were blue, her hair matted with snow, and her eyes, God help him, were wild with terror. She started, her voice breaking into a cough. "They threw me in." Caleb didn't ask who. He reached out, his calloused hands gripping hers. Her fingers were icy, nearly numb. "I've got you," he said, steady as saying it could make it true. The ice around her cracked. Water surged up, dark and biting. Caleb pulled hard, muscles burning, dragging her over the jagged edge until she collapsed on top of him. She was shivering so violently it made her teeth clatter. He wrapped his arms around her, hauling them both back toward shore, inch by inch. Every sound of splitting ice made his heart pound harder, but they made it, collapsing onto the snow-drifted bank. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts. Caleb shrugged off his heavy coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She clutched it, still too cold to speak. "You're not dying here," he told her, voice low, certain. "Not while I'm still breathing." He didn't know yet who had thrown her into the Gallatin River or how far they'd go to finish what they'd started. But he knew one thing for certain. She was his responsibility now, and he never let go of what was his. The cabin was 3 miles upriver, 3 miles that might as well have been 30 with the way she stumbled. Caleb kept his pace steady but quick, one arm around her waist, the other gripping the strap of his rifle. Every few steps he glanced behind them. The wind had covered their tracks in places, but snow this dry held shapes longer than you wanted it to. If someone came looking, they'd find the trail. She hadn't said a word since the river, but her breathing told him plenty. Each inhale was ragged, shallow. Her legs dragged more than they stepped, her boots, what was left of them, crunching unevenly. Halfway there, she sagged against him, knees buckling. Caleb caught her under the arms and lowered her to the snow. "You can't stop," he told her. Her eyes fluttered, the lashes iced over. "Look at me." She did, but barely, like she was hearing from far away. Caleb knew the signs. Too much longer in the cold, and she wouldn't come back. He dropped to a crouch in front of her, unbuckled the strap of his coat, and pulled it tighter around her shoulders. "You're gonna walk, or I'll carry you. And if I carry you, it's gonna hurt like hell when your toes thaw." That earned him the faintest flicker in her eyes. It was enough. She stood, leaning hard into him as they pushed through the drifts. By the time the cabin came into view, a squat shape of logs crouched under snow-laden pines. Caleb's thighs burned from the climb, and his fingers were stiff on the rifle stock. He shouldered the door open, ushering her inside into the sharp warmth of the fire he'd banked before leaving that morning. The heat hit her like a blow. She staggered toward the hearth but stopped short, staring into the flames as if unsure she was allowed. Caleb closed the door, shut out the howl of the wind, and hung his rifle on the wall. "Sit." She did, slowly, lowering herself onto the worn bearskin by the fire. Her hands hovered out toward the warmth, trembling. Caleb pulled a thick quilt from the bed and wrapped it around her. "You're lucky I was downriver," he said. "That water." He shook his head, not finishing the thought. For a long moment, the only sound was the snap of the fire and the drip of water from her soaked dress onto the hearthstones. Then, her voice, hoarse and low. "They said I was a thief." Caleb stopped midway to hanging his coat. "Were you?" Her eyes flicked up at him, sharp despite the exhaustion. "No." "Then why?" "They didn't need a reason." "Not really." She swallowed hard. It was a game to them. Said they wanted to see if the ice would break. Caleb stared at her for a moment, jaw tight. There were men in these parts who'd do a thing like that for no more reason than cruelty. He'd met them before. "You got a name?" Her gaze dropped to the fire. "Eliza." He nodded once. "Eliza, you're gonna stay here tonight. Dry out. Get warm." Her brow creased. "And then?" "And then, if they come looking, they'll have to get through me." Something passed in her expression then. Relief? Disbelief? Maybe both. She pulled the quilt tighter. Curling closer to the fire. Caleb went to fetch dry clothes from the chest, but his mind wasn't on flannel shirts or wool socks. It was on the fact that someone had tossed this girl into the Gallatin River like she was nothing. And Caleb Warren didn't let nothing die without a fight. The storm thickened overnight. By morning, the wind clawed at the cabin walls like it wanted in. Snow blew in swirls off the pines, the sky a flat, leaden sheet. Eliza hadn't moved much since Caleb left her by the fire. He'd changed her into dry wool, bandaged the raw places on her wrists, and set a mug of coffee near her hand. Now she sat in the same spot, quilt pulled high, eyes tracking the flames like she was afraid they might vanish. "You eat anything yet?" Caleb asked, setting a skillet over the coals. She shook her head without looking at him. "You will," he said. "Nobody keeps their strength on fire alone." He cracked eggs into the pan, added a slice of bacon. The smell filled the cabin, sharp and warm. Eliza's eyes flicked toward the food, quick and guilty, like she didn't want him to see her hunger. By the time he slid the plate toward her, she was already leaning forward. She ate slow at first, careful, but her hands trembled as though each bite was a battle. Caleb let her finish before asking the thing he'd been turning over all morning. "Eliza, the men who put you in the river, you know their names?" Her fork stilled. She swallowed hard. "2 of them. The third was just there, watching." Caleb waited. "Henry Pike," she said finally. "And Mason Crow." Caleb knew them both. Trappers. Mean ones. Always sniffing for trouble in town. Always just smart enough to walk away before trouble stuck to them. "And why'd they pick you?" he asked. Her eyes went hard. "Because I wouldn't smile." Caleb didn't answer right away. He turned back to the fire, jaw tight, watching her. He bacon grease pop. Men like Pike and Crow didn't need much more than that. They thrived on breaking things that didn't bend for them. "You think they'll come looking?" he asked. "They don't leave. Things alone," she said. "They'll want to finish it." Caleb stood, crossed to the rifle rack. He ran a cloth down the barrel of his Winchester, slow and steady. "Let 'em try." Eliza watched him, something unreadable passing over her face. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. The day dragged long. Caleb split wood, fixed the loose hinge on the back door, and kept glancing through the frost-crusted window toward the tree line. Every so often, a gust of wind shifted the snow in ways that made his gut twitch. By afternoon, the light was already fading. Out here, winter days were short, and nights longer than they had any right to be. Caleb was setting another log on the fire when he heard it, faint, under the wind. Horses. He straightened, head tilting. The rhythm was wrong for elk or deer. These were hooves, crunching slow but steady over frozen ground. Eliza noticed the change in his face. "What is it?" Caleb didn't answer. He moved to the window, parting the curtain with one finger. 3 figures emerged from the pines, dark shapes against the snow. Pike, Crow, and the third man she hadn't named. They rode in without hurry, like they knew they had all the time in the world. Eliza's breath quickened. "They found me." Caleb let the curtain fall. He crossed to the wall, lifted the rifle down, and checked the chamber. "Get behind the bed," he told her. She hesitated. "Caleb, do it." Her bare feet whispered against the floorboards as she moved. Caleb stepped to the door, planting himself between her and whatever was about to come through it. The knock wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. "Warren," Pike's voice drawled through the wood. "We know you got her." Caleb said nothing. "You hand her over. We'll walk away," Crow called. "No harm done." Caleb glanced toward the fire, where the flames hissed and popped. "You've already done harm." Silence for a beat. Then Pike again, voice colder. "Don't make us come in." Caleb's grip tightened on the rifle. "Then you'd better be ready to leave a few of your own in the snow." Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it the creak of leather and the shift of boots in stirrups. They weren't riding away. They were settling in. The storm had gone silent. That was worse than the wind. Caleb knew quiet out here didn't mean peace. It meant the snow was waiting to muffle the sound of bad things. He kept his eyes on the door, weight balanced over his boots, Winchester loose but ready. From behind the bed, Eliza's breathing was fast and shallow. He didn't look at her. If he did, he might give her fear back to her in his own face. Boots crunched outside, a slow step, then another. The boards under the porch groaned. Pike's voice came again, softer this time, the kind of quiet that wasn't meant to be calm. "You know, Warren, men get curious when they hear you've got company. Folks will wonder why you're keeping her to yourself." Caleb thumbed the hammer back a notch. "Only folks that wonder will be the ones digging their friends out from under this snow." Crow chuckled, low and ugly. "She ain't worth dying over." Caleb's voice was steady. "Neither are you." Silence. Then a boot hit the door. The frame rattled, snow shaking loose from the roof. Caleb didn't move. He let them hit it twice more before answering, with the sharp, deafening crack of his rifle. The shot punched through the top of the door frame, splintering wood an inch from where Crow's shadow had been. Outside there was a curse, the scrape of boots backing down the steps. "I don't miss on the second shot," Caleb called. The horses shifted. For a moment it sounded like they might mount up and go. But then Pike spoke, colder than the river ice. "We'll wait you out." Caleb listened as they stepped away, Tian. His sound fading toward the tree line. He knew they hadn't gone far. Men like that never left with their pride still breathing. By nightfall the cabin was an island in a white sea. Caleb moved. The siege had been a slow bleed of nerves, but now it was a full-throated howl. Snow came in sideways under the eaves, riding the wind like shards of glass. Each gust rattled the shutters, made the old pine beams groan. Caleb knew the cabin wouldn't hold if Pike and Crow kept pressing. The boy he'd shot in the shoulder sat against the far wall, pale and shivering. Eliza was crouched beside him, pressing a strip of torn blanket to the wound. She didn't speak. Her eyes were locked on Caleb, reading his face for what he wasn't saying. And what he wasn't saying was that this was the last stretch. One way or another, it ended tonight. From the tree line came the faint glint of movement, too low to be a man walking upright. Caleb knew the trick. He'd used it himself in leaner years, crawling in the snow, letting the wind hide your sound, using the storm to mask the breath in your throat. He leaned to Eliza. "When I open that door, you stay down. If the fire dies, you keep feeding it, no matter what." Her jaw tightened. "And if you don't come back?" He didn't answer. The truth was heavy enough without putting words to it. A rifle cracked from the right side of the cabin, the bullet splintering the doorframe inches from his ear. Caleb's hand was already on the latch. "Stay low," he said, and yanked the door wide. The wind punched in first, cold and wild, nearly ripping it from his hand. He stepped out into the blizzard, the world turning instantly to white and shadow. Shapes moved ahead, 2 men crawling low. Caleb fired once, saw one drop, then swung toward the left where a muzzle flash burst through the snow. He fired again, then dove behind the woodpile as bullets chewed into the logs. Pike's voice roared over the storm. "We can wait, Warren. Sooner or later that fire goes out, and you'll freeze like the rest." Caleb chambered another round. "It won't go out," he called back. "Not while I'm breathing." Crow charged from the side, a blur in the snow, shotgun raised. Caleb rolled from cover and fired from the hip. Crow staggered, dropped to one knee, then fell face first into the drift. From the cabin, Eliza's voice rang out, a single, sharp cry. Caleb turned in time to see Pike forcing the back window open, shoving himself through. Caleb ran. The snow dragged at his legs, the cold biting deep into his lungs. He hit the porch, barreled through the door, and was inside just as Pike yanked Eliza up by the hair. The room felt too small for the 3 of them. The fire threw long, twisting shadows over Pike's face, his eyes wild and bright. "You think you can keep her?" Pike spat. "She's ours by law, by—" Caleb didn't let him finish. He crossed the space in 2 strides, slamming the rifle butt into Pike's jaw. The man went down hard, dragging Eliza with him. She rolled free, scrambling toward the bed. Pike tried to rise, but Caleb was already on him. They went over in a tangle, fists and elbows striking, boots kicking over the rifle rack. The fire popped, showering sparks onto the floorboards. Caleb got his hands on Pike's coat collar, driving him back toward the open door. Outside, the wind screamed, pulling at them both. "You step back in this cabin," Caleb said through clenched teeth, "and you won't step out again." He shoved Pike hard, sending him staggering into the snow. The man fell once, rose halfway, then turned and vanished into the storm without another word. Caleb slammed the door, dropping the bar into place. His chest burned from cold and effort, his hands raw and bleeding. Eliza was at the fire, feeding it with the last of the split logs. Her face was pale but set, her eyes bright in the flickering light. "They'll come back," she said quietly. "Maybe," Caleb said, leaning the rifle by the door. "But to hell find the fires still burning." Outside, the blizzard raged on, erasing the footprints, covering the blood, swallowing the night whole. Inside, the firelight danced against the walls, warm, stubborn, and alive. It would not go out. The storm began to tire toward dawn. It didn't stop, it just softened, like it had finally run out of ways to hurt them. The cabin was still, save for the faint crackle of the fire and the low, steady whistle of wind at the eaves. Outside, the white world lay piled high and heavy, muting every sound. Caleb sat in the old rocker near the hearth, boots off, one sock torn from where a nail had caught him in the scuffle. The rifle leaned against his knee. He wasn't sleeping, not yet. Sleep would come, but not until he'd heard nothing for long enough to trust it. Eliza was on the bed, her knees drawn up under the thick wool blanket. She hadn't spoken much since Pike was driven off. Every now and then she glanced at him, like she wanted to speak, then thought better of it. Finally she did. "Why?" The question was small, but it had weight. Caleb shifted in the chair. "Why what? You could have let me go. Would have been easier, safer, not your fight." He stared into the fire a long while before answering. "Maybe it ain't my fight, but I've seen what happens to folks when no one steps in, and I ain't about to watch it happen again." Her gaze didn't leave him. "It's happened to you." His jaw worked. More than once. The fire popped, sending up a brief shower of sparks. For a while neither of them spoke. The warmth filled the room, pushing back the lingering bite of the cold. "I thought I was done," she said finally. "Back on that river, when the ice closed over me. I thought that was it. I was just tired." Her voice wavered, then steadied. Then you were there. Caleb didn't look at her, but his grip on the rifle loosened. Ain't no one too far gone to pull out. The silence that followed was different, no longer hollow but full of something unspoken. He stood, crossed the room, and laid another log on the fire. The flame caught quick, licking up the dry bark. You'll stay here till it's safe, he said. Could be weeks, maybe more, but you won't freeze. Not here. Her voice was quiet, but sure. Then I'll stay. Caleb nodded once, and for the first time since the river she saw something ease in his face. Outside the snow still fell, but it was gentler now, like the world was catching its breath. Inside, the fire glowed steady, throwing its light across the walls and into the small space they now shared. It would burn as long as he was able, and he had no plans to let it go out.